What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Grace Speaks, a Grace Church podcast. I am Mike Vecchio, one of your hosts, and sitting across from me, we have
Alexis Stark, one of your other hosts. I don't know why I almost added like Starks, like I almost like did that, but anyway, like multiple. There's just so many.
There's two of you and his whole family.
I mean, that's true. There are many Starks.
And I am Katia Gonzalez.
and sitting to my left, we have our guest today, who is
Nancy Ramella.
Hi.
Nancy. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we are getting back to our mini-series on Gracelings.
Yep.
Where this is a series where we invite someone in from Grace who has been here for a long time, and we just pick their brains about Grace of what they love about it and why they have been here. Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So really diving into this first question, we just want you to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us how long have you been attending Grace?
Well, again, I'm Nancy Ramella, and I have been attending Grace 27 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's home.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So going to a church for so long, because sometimes people check out different churches if they've moved states. They're obviously checking out different churches or different branches of that. What we want to know here is, after being at Grace for 25 plus years, what made you stay here? What made you stay here at Grace?
Okay, well, I was church shopping. I went everywhere. I went Pentecostal, I went Catholic, I went everywhere.
I love it.
And one day I said, okay, my girlfriend Nancy actually said, let's try Grace Church in Netcong. She had come here before that. And so we went, and I walked in, and immediately I knew it was different.
Yeah.
I did. I knew right away, and I felt real comfortable. So came back again. And the cool part was we saw Armin the first time, and he introduced himself, and when I came back the next time, he remembered our names.
Yes,
Now, it was only a week, but still, that was very impressive that he remembered. So that was another kind of check mark on my box, whatever that meant.
Yeah, did you have like a list as you were shopping? Like, was there like criteria, or it was just like a feeling when you walked in, like this is where you were supposed to be?
It felt right. It felt right. Like I said, I had been going to a Pentecostal church before that, and I realized that the emotion had initially drawn me in, but then that became more important than anything else.
Right. Yeah.
And I knew that was wrong. I knew for me that was not right.
Right.
So that's how my search began. But I just loved Grace. I loved it.
Right.
Yeah, and speaking to, obviously Armin Summer has been a huge part of this church for his years doing ministry. And
Part 1 and 2.
Part 1 and 2. And just the fact that when you came back, he remembered who you were, and he came up to you and introduced himself again, that was always, I was here for, a short amount of time when Armin was here. Then obviously he retired up to Cooperstown. But even my parents have said that they've been here, a couple of times when Armin was here, and he would always go up to them and reintroduce himself, and he would remember who they were and say, oh, you're Mike's family, right? And that was a big drawing factor of like almost his hospitality when you came here, of just being willing to go up and down each aisle and say hello to people, even on days when he was speaking, where he would just sort of need to be focused on messages. He would go out of his way to do that, and that's a huge inviting factor.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that welcoming touch. He was a greeter when you're inside. You know how there's greeters on the outside, but now he's also getting like the greeter inside.
Yeah.
So Nancy, my question is, because you say you love Grace, what is if you had to pick a favorite thing about Grace, what is your favorite thing about Grace?
It's family.
Family, yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Grace was a place that when I started coming here, I was going through a lot of transitional changes in my life. And I had a lot of really hurtful issues going on. But when I came to Grace, I always knew I would walk in and get at least one hug, at least one. And it was always much more. But the thing that it's just the love and the fellowship. It was a place that you would call home.
Yeah.
You would call home. You didn't get lost in a crowd, although it was big, but you still didn't get lost in a crowd there was still always someone that would find you.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I find it actually impressive that Grace has that. Like multiple people have said, like it feels like family, which I think is so interesting because it is a big church, and then to not feel like lost in the crowd, like you were saying, is just a testament to what God's doing here with everyone, and
Absolutely.
and that hospitality that we try to have. Because I feel the same way. I've been going here my whole life, and I just like feel like everyone is kind of family, and it's so cool to see other people have that same kind of testimony and that same favorite thing about Grace that I have.
Yeah, and hearing you guys talk about it, because it's cool because we have two people on this podcast right now that have been going here for a long time, and then me and Katia are recent joiners of Grace on staff. We're the newbies of Grace.
We're still vetting them. No, I'm kidding.
And I know I'm speaking for myself here, but hearing you two talk about that, it's reflecting what I've experienced here too.
Oh, yeah.
Of and not even just joining on staff, but joining the church in general. You feel that when you walk in. You feel that when you talk to people, and you feel that when you interact. And like you said, it's fellowship. It's that family feeling. So Katia, I don't know if you can. I know you can speak to that too, but I'm speaking for myself too. Of that's the thing you feel when you walk in, when you walk through Grace's doors. That's the main thing that you feel.
No, definitely. I do agree with you because, again, only been going here, a year and 6 months, a year and a half?
Yeah, year and change probably.
Yeah. And
Katia got hired before me.
Right. I've been here longer than Mike. But yeah, I feel the same way about just that it is family. And I feel like because even though we're two campuses and even an online campus, it's there's so much that we have going on that there's so many ways to connect with people and meet people. Yeah.
Very true.
I know this is we're interviewing Nancy, but I do actually have a question for Mike and Katia.
Oh, yeah.
What's your favorite thing about Grace?
My favorite thing, I would have to say the staff. But I'm on staff. But I guess I've just never been a part of a church staff before this, so it's my first time seeing really truly the inner works of a church. I've interned and helped out and volunteered at my previous churches, but just see on a weekly basis just the heart that the staff that we have, but everyone else has too, just for Grace and for the kingdom. I really love the staff.
Very cool.
And I mean, I would echo that too, but going a step further there, not only do I love meeting the new people here, but I love seeing what hearts these people have for the different ministries here.
Oh, yeah.
Because we had Al Milford on last podcast, and he was talking about Smile and the heart that he has for people with disabilities, and sitting in the chair next to me, just hearing him go on and on about give time to those sorts of people, give time to people with those disabilities who don't have the same things that we do. And if we're going off people on staff, talking to Kenny Stearns and, the heart that he has for worship and being led by God's Spirit, he's always an interesting conversation, no matter what day you catch him on. So
that is true. It's
Absolutely.
really, honestly, it's really fun to talk to Kenny.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you can just, anybody you talk to, you can have a heartfelt conversation with them at any time. And, coming here, I was a little worried of, am I going to fit into this place? Because, obviously, one of our big statements here at Grace is raising up generations of families that are built to last. So there have been generations of families that have come through this church. And then all of a sudden, here's this new guy coming in from the shore, being planted up in North Jersey. And I was like, I want to know if I'm going to fit in here. So it took some time to feel that out. But with the heart that these people have, and with the heart that you guys have, like you said, it's home, and you feel that. And I feel accepted by this church, if that sounds right. That, I feel like I'm a member of this family, just coming in here for a year and a half. So that's one thing that I love, that you can genuinely walk up to people, and you can just talk to them, and you can be friendly, you can have fellowship, and even at our 6 p.m. service, if you guys come to our 6 p.m. service, you can enjoy a fellowship meal with them. Yeah. Which is awesome. So plug
my
for
favorite.
6 p.m.
Yeah, my favorite.
They do have good food. But Nancy, I actually have a question based off what Mike said. Did you feel, because you said you walked in and you felt it was different, but did you have any trepidation walking in to Grace? Did you feel I wonder if I'm going to fit in? Or was it just something you had that at the beginning and then you walked through the door, got your first hug, and you're like, all right, I'm in. This is it.
I was really hungry to find a church because I knew it was time for getting serious with God. I had accepted Christ many years before, and I put on my Christian hat and I lived my life, but I didn't live it for God. I just lived it as a saved person. But I knew
What do you
that
mean by that? Like you didn't live it for God, but you lived as a saved person.
I had accepted my salvation, but nothing else changed.
Gotcha.
I wasn't going to church. I wasn't reading the Bible, but I was saved, and I knew that there was more than that. And I knew I had to get to know this God that I got my salvation from. So when I walked into Grace, I guess there was part of me that was thinking, well, is this going to be it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But after I was here, and especially after I was here 2 or 3 times, I knew it was. I joined the church very quickly after coming. And I got involved in ministries right away, which I had never done before.
Okay, awesome.
I was always a visitor in a church. Sunday you would go and come home. But Grace was different, and I knew that.
What was your first ministry that you got involved
Children's.
in? Yeah.
Yay.
Children's.
Love children's
Yeah.
ministry.
And then I started with women's ministry 25 years ago, and I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
She's
Yep.
great.
Yeah.
As the women's ministry director.
I was
She's great.
I was going to say, I'd like to start women's ministry director, everyone.
Plug.
I was just going to say, there's her plug.
Yep.
So Nancy, do you have like a favorite memory from Greece?
Oh, I was waiting for this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. It's one of my
yes,
favorite
I
questions.
do.
Same, yeah.
Honestly.
I also got involved in the drama team.
I miss
And
those days.
I loved
never
it.
never got to experience that, but I'm like waiting for it to come back somehow.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, so drama was honestly drama was like what, like in the 90s we had it, and
Yeah.
it was like in the beginning of most of our sermons,
Right.
and it usually was like a story that went along with the sermon subject, and it had like a moral to it too.
Oh, so
and
you guys did it on Sunday mornings?
yeah, so it
Oh,
was
that's
part of
really
like
cool.
the worship experience. So we would do a few songs. Then it was the drama that Anita Stearns would like kind of direct. So Kenny's wife, and it was so fun. It was honestly my favorite part. I would get sad when there wasn't a drama.
Okay, we're going to talk to some people about bringing
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
back.
bring it
We're gonna
back.
get this going.
It's so true. It was
Sign the
such-
petition.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
It
We'll
was
start
such
it
an
here right
important
now.
part of the service because it set the scene.
Yeah,
it really,
it really
did.
did.
It set the scene for what the
Wow,
preacher was
yeah.
going to talk about.
Yeah.
But my favorite memory from there is I was in one of the Christmas programs. And Monica was playing Mary, and I was playing Elizabeth, of course. And
Oh, I think I remember this one.
well, you wouldn't remember this part because we were doing dress rehearsal,
Yeah, I wouldn't remember this part.
and I
wasn't
walked
there.
out on stage, and I went blank. And I turned to Monica, and I said to her, Monica, I don't remember any of my lines. And she said, oh my, I can't help you. I was like, oh, I was in such a panic. So my girlfriend, Nancy, I went to her and I said, Nancy, pray for me, pray for me. And she goes, I will. She said, what's wrong? And I told her, she said, I'll go right now. So she went in the back and she started praying. And I did remember the lines. Everything went fine.
Yeah.
But my favorite drama of all was with Bob Jepson. He was the magician. Remember Bob?
I loved him.
Yes,
And his wife.
Yes,
Who was the
Rosie.
clowne.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry,
was
I
his
got. Oh, what a
stage
throwback.
I
That made.
I just love that they're going back and forth, and me and
Yes.
Katia are just smiling at like the joy that,
I'm
that
like,
they're
yeah,
seeing
I
from
want to
these
meet
memories.
these people.
Oh, they were
Yeah.
so cool.
Well,
Oh,
it was
I love
funny
them.
because Rosie used to say I was Bob's stage wife. And I was. I was. Because whenever there was a drama for a husband and wife, it was always Bob and I. And he was a great guy. He really
he
was.
was.
And this one drama that I did with him was with duct tape. Now, at the time when I met my husband, we weren't married at that time, of course, I went to his apartment the first time, and he had literally duct tape everywhere. So things couldn't move.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This
Everything
couldn't
was
happen.
fixed though. No,
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
Love
And
it.
the first thing I said to him when our relationship headed towards marriage was duct tape is banned. So when I had this drama with Bob Jepson, and my husband's name is Bob,
Oh.
it was with duct tape. And anything I asked this man to fix, he used duct tape on. And the end of the scene, I was using a vacuum, which was duct taped, the handle.
Oh my goodness.
And while that was going on, something else that he had duct tape in the back fell off the wall. So that had a special memory for me because we had so much fun with that drama. So I think that my fondest memories are really with the drama team because we had become such close friends.
Yeah.
And working together, you know, and especially with Anita, because Anita was a stickler.
Yeah.
There were no cheat sheets. You knew your lines. And I think that was part of my panic for Christmas because there was no cheat sheet and
Right.
I didn't remember my lines. So that was my fondest memory.
Oh, I love the drama.
Dramas are always just they're always such a good time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I understand that like church dramas and school dramas are different, but you're saying, you know, when you become closer with people, like I even saw that because I used to play music for dramas in high school, and you saw how like throughout the various months when like the cast was performing, like they did get closer at a point because they spent so much time together, like trying to make this as perfect as possible. And I even remember like doing dramas in school, like back in 5th grade. So that is a ministry that sounds so cool to me and sounds so fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, we gotta make some calls and talk to some people. Have some people talk to some other people.
Anita, if you're listening, you hear us. No, I'm kidding.
Here are please. So, you know, flashing back, you know, you said you've been at Grace for 27 years. Obviously, over those times, you know, churches go through growth periods throughout those time periods, and you know, you've been here for both of Armin's times here. So throughout those years, how have you seen Grace grow and change throughout the years? Because it's obviously different now than from when it was like back in the 90s. So how has it changed, and how have you seen it change throughout the course of your time here?
Well, it's really interesting because Grace doesn't go by a set of rules. This is the way it's got to be. This is the way church has to be. It's how we run it. It has really met the needs of the community and changed with those needs. You know, COVID was a perfect example of how Grace changed with the needs that were going on at that time. And it's always been that way. You know, when we've lost senior pastors that have moved on, there was a time that all the pastors would preach. And it was so cool because you would get all these different types of teaching because they all have their own way. Let's face
their own
it,
styles
just
and
like
flair.
we do.
Yeah.
But for Grace, they have always changed according to the needs. And I think that's so important in a church because it can't be run by rules. They have their standards. They won't deviate from certain things, which is important too. But they're also flexible.
Right. They're flexible with things that can be flexible, but like a stickler for those things that cannot be. Like you never compromise the word, but like the color of the sanctuary or whatever just like can change. Like something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Or, you know.
Yeah. I definitely see that in Grace too. And that's something that I strongly appreciate and value.
Absolutely.
So for someone who's new, maybe looking to check out Grace, what would you say? Maybe it's something that you haven't said yet, but if someone's coming to check out Grace and they ask you, you know, what about Grace Church should I look forward to? What's the one thing that you know to tell them?
Relationships.
Yeah.
You know, definitely relationships. If you're looking for a church to get involved with, a church to meet people with, to develop relationships, then Grace is the place for you. If you're looking for a place that you think you're just going to slip in and sit in the back row and no one's going to notice, don't go to Grace.
Yeah.
Because they will.
Yeah.
They will
Somebody's
find
going
you.
to find you.
They will find you and they will friend you.
That's so funny because last year we had a friend who we haven't seen in a while like come, and he was trying to just slip in, slip out, and because Grace is in his home church, he just wanted to, that's why he chose it, just to do that. And he was just having a rough like week, and he just didn't want to go to his home church because everyone would notice, hey, like what's going on, what's wrong. So he comes to Grace not knowing that my husband and I started, you know, attending. And so I like see him at the corner of my eye, and I text my husband like, "Oh, isn't this so and so?" And long story short, my husband just reaches out to him and is like, "Hey, like I saw you at Grace," and he was like, "Oh man, I was really trying to not go unnoticed."
Oh my gosh.
Go under the radar.
But he said, he was like, he opened up to my husband. He's like, "I'm actually glad that someone did notice me, and here's what's going on," and then they kind of reconnected in their relationship and so on. But
that's really cool.
yeah, so I felt like it was a God moment. But yeah,
Absolutely.
God is placing people in your life for a reason, for a time, and Grace is definitely in place for that.
Definitely fosters fellowship with each other, I think, for sure. Just like you can tell, like when the service starts or when it ends, like there's people just congregating, just talking to each other. Like people are trying to set up for the 6 p.m. service, and there's people just still talking.
Yeah, exactly.
Like still going.
I'm surprised people aren't just rolling tables over. Like, guys, I need to do this.
Yeah,
But I love that. I love that there's that, like that people are just like willing to, talk to each other and spend that time or notice the person who's, trying not to be noticed. Like that's just so cool about Grace. I think you're right, Nancy. Like expect relationships of some sort.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially with Matt, Katia's husband, like you don't want to connect. Oh well.
He's like,
he's always.
I'm gonna friend you.
It's like who doesn't get along with him?
That's true.
And,
Right.
Grace is such an inviting environment that it just makes it even more so.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah, it's not a church that you walk into, service starts at this time, it's over, you walk out the door.
Yep.
True. So true.
No.
Yeah, people are socializing before and after.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, it's really cool to see. And what's really cool is that, like, part of it is at both campuses. Like, there's no, like, it's not like one campus is like, oh, you know what, service is over, I'm leaving. Like, no, both of them are all about, like, because it's the same Grace DNA at both. So, like, whichever one you go to, expect to find a friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I've tried to, like, so I'm mainly at this campus, and
Which is Randolph.
Which is
That's where
Randolph.
we record.
We are recording at Randolph. But I try to go through the lobby sometimes, and there are so many people in the lobby that I find myself like trying to shrink myself in order to get through.
Yeah,
I'm like,
right.
"Guys,
It's just
excuse
like
me,
dodge.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's always like that here. Always people before and after, and that's a highlight. So,
Absolutely.
True. You can't leave the lobby without talking to someone.
Yeah, it's true. You're never going to just slip in and slip out.
So now looking forward, what do you think God has in store for Grace and Grace's community?
Well, in my women's ministry, I always say every time a new person comes in, community is a puzzle, if you will. And I always say that to the girls, that you're a piece that was missing. And I think with Grace and moving forward, God knows exactly what Grace needs to grow on the next step. And we'll be getting a new senior pastor. And it's kind of cool when you think about it, that right now God knows exactly who it's going to be.
Yeah.
He knows exactly how he's going to fit in, and that he's going to bring something to Grace that we don't have.
Right.
True.
He is so aware of what our needs are. And I think moving forward, probably one of our biggest areas is going to be with the community around us. That's been a real focus. So how God's going to do that, I don't know, but thank God he does.
Yeah, right?
Right.
Thank God knows.
Exactly. Yeah. God knows how he's going to do it. But I think it's really cool when you think about moving forward and what might be changing.
Yeah.
Maybe like drama.
Yeah, maybe it's coming back. Anita, Kafka.
Yeah. Anita right now is probably going,
Anita's like, no.
As if we haven't made it obvious yet, we want this drama ministry to come back.
It is such an exciting time. I've never been through this transition of like having a pastor retire and then finding a new one. So I'm excited. I'm very excited.
And I'm sort of in that same boat of, when I was back in my old church down in Toms River, New Jersey, it was somebody from within, like somebody who had been training for, 5 or 6 years under our senior pastor who had it was an easy transition. And I know that bringing in someone from the outside can't always be the easiest thing, especially people who are used to, seeing Cam and Pastor Scott up on there every Sunday, and even Armin until the last year, a lot of Sundays up there. But like you said, God knows exactly who it's going to be, and he's coming in for a reason. It's not just without purpose, but he is coming in for a reason. So that is huge. And you even talked about a little bit about the community around us. And if we're talking directly around us, Chris Carpio, who's the other pastor of student ministries here and also another host of this podcast, has talked a lot about this Ledgewood area of right down the road, right down Route 10. There's this little place they call it the Ledgewood Commons, where there's, places to eat. There's a small strip mall there.
Panda Express and Five Guys
And
and
Panda
Starbucks,
Express.
like right there with Chipotle. Like it's beautiful.
You just had to say Panda Express. Now I have to go get some. But he's talked about that a lot in terms of, student ministries in general. Like he really wants to reach out because he has been all about community for like the last year. That has been a big thing on his heart. And especially for student ministries, he sees a lot of people like riding their bikes through there. He sees a lot of people doing car meetups there, which are really cool to me, especially if they're like old classic timey cars.
That's cool.
That's really cool. But yeah, I'm agreeing with you in the fact of the community around us is huge, especially because I live out in Lake Opakon. We're sort of spread out a little bit, but I think that if we really do want to spread the message of Christ and really help Grace grow, not just when the senior pastor comes in, but in the now, like right now.
Right.
It's a huge opportunity for us to be able to get out into those areas and spread the gospel, to just let people know, like, hey, if it's just as little as this, Jesus loves you. Yeah. And especially with Easter and Good Friday and Easter coming up, that's on a lot of people's minds, and we need to be just remembering of that, not just on those days, but throughout the rest of our lives.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Do you have any, final thoughts for those that are kind of doing what you did when you were church shopping? I can't talk. Church shopping. It almost sounded like
It's a
church
tongue twister.
chopping. Like chopping. Like, no. Now I lost my train of thought with my question.
Wheels are off, everyone.
Final thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts of what you would say to someone who is looking for a church, like what, or even just were in your position where you were like 27 years ago. Like what would you say?
I think the most important thing to remember when you go to a church is filled with broken people.
Truth.
If you're looking for a perfect church, your search will never end. It'll never end. But if you can accept the fact that God uses broken people to help other broken people, then Grace is a good place to start because they will meet your needs. They're there in good times, bad times.
So true.
And you're not going to get that if you're a transient. You can't keep going from church to church. Sooner or later, you have to land the plane.
Yep.
So if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for a church that you want to call home, Grace is a good place.
It is.
It's such an important statement.
Yeah, that was like a good final word.
That a church is full of broken people. I was
Yeah.
ready to start snapping.
Yeah, everyone's. Well, maybe not on this podcast. I wonder what it sounds like for people. No, I'm not going to do it.
Right into the microphone.
I'm almost, but no.
But yeah, because I know that, some people deal with hurt out of the church, of people from the church.
Yeah.
And that's such an important statement to keep in mind of this church is full of broken people, of imperfect people. And, if you're looking for a place to go and start those relationships, we've been talking about that the entire time, of this fellowship feeling, of this relational feeling that you get when you walk through these doors and throughout these different ministries and different services. So I think that bringing that up is huge.
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge reminder for anybody, searching for a church to go, that reminder of the place that you're walking into, that these are all people relying on the love of Jesus and on the sacrifice of Jesus to come through their everyday life. So that's hugely important.
It's true. Yeah, because, Grace isn't perfect. We love Grace, but we love more what God is doing at Grace. And that could be said for, whatever church, whether it's Grace you come to or another church that God is calling you to. Like, it's full of broken people, like Nancy said, but what's wonderful is what God is doing there, with those broken people.
And even if you go to a church and you're hurt by somebody, Jesus is always there to bind up those wounds.
Amen.
Amen.
And
There's
he never
reconciliation,
leaves,
yeah.
and he'll never disappoint us, and he will never hurt us. And he'll show us how to work through when other people do,
Yeah.
if we turn to him.
True.
Absolutely. Well, Nancy, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so
this
much.
This was wonderful. I
Yeah,
love
this was fun.
We love having people on here that have been going to Grace for a while and can just give us their story and what they love the most, and even like you said, how they've changed over the years, but have still stuck to the Word of God and what God's will is for not only the people in it, but for the church as a whole, for it to expand and for it to still stick to the principles of the Bible and the principles of Scripture. So, Nancy, thank you so much for being an incredible guest with us today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been fun. It
Oh,
really
this was
has.
really
A lot of
fun.
fun.
Yeah. A lot
Absolutely.
of nostalgia. Loved it.
Yeah, Alexa was having more of a flashback than anybody, so it was great. But for everybody listening, thank you so much for joining us again on Grace Speaks.
Yes.
And we will see you on our next episode.
Yeah.
Peace out, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.